Hello and glad you can join us. Here's what's happening. Critical campaign debate, the face-off in French.
It's going to be a real pressure cooker.
How each party plans to court the Quebec vote.
Undemocratic decision.
Disinvited, why the Green Party is seeing red.
This could really create threats to Canada.
Plus signaling concerns over a popular messaging app.
CTV National News with Sandy Renaud.
30 minutes to go until the first big election showdown, the French language debate in Montreal, with 4, not 5, party leaders taking to the stage. The Greens have been disqualified. We'll have more on that later. But first, we have full team coverage, starting with CTV senior political correspondent Mike Legatour outside the debate studio on this important moment for the leaders to make the case to Quebecers. And Mike, remind us again what the debate issues will be tonight.
Yeah, there are 5 issues. The first one that has been hanging over this campaign that isn't really going to be debated tonight is, of course, U.S. President Donald Trump. But, of course, the trade war and all of our sovereignty, those will be part of it. And I say the sovereignty because of that threat of becoming the 51st state that has really sort of hung over this campaign so far. So the subjects, Sandy, are the cost of living, energy and climate, trade war, identity and sovereignty, and the last one, immigration and foreign affairs. Interesting, though, that climate topic will not have the Green Party co-leader Jonathan Pedd. No, he was told by the debate commission that he will not be here, and he is expressing, of course, disappointment in that, Sandy.
Okay, so obviously this debate in French, and Mark Carney has been candid about his proficiency in the language. Now you have to wonder if he's nervous and how he'll be judged.
Yeah, it's interesting. He did have a bit of a nod to Quebec today on the campaign trail, going to a famous Montreal landmark, Poutine Place, where he made sure that he went and mixed with people, spoke French to all of them, ordered a poutine as well. But we know he has said that in terms of French proficiency, he gives himself about a 6 out of 10, and he knows that he has to prove himself here. His team says this is about showing Quebecers the sort of fun side of Mark Carney, the dad that everybody knows and loves in Eastern Canada, but really this is an introduction for a lot of Quebecers, and I think the key for him will be do no harm and try and make no mistakes. Sandy?
Okay, we'll be watching that debate coming up very, very soon. Thanks, Mike. Now, Quebec matters, and tonight's debate is a key moment, of course, because of how much the parties have to win in a province that's long been difficult to figure out on the federal scene. So we asked CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin to dig into the key issues important to Quebecers. Over to you, Jen.
Yes, Andy, some things do stay the same. Hockey is always part of the electoral game here, but this campaign is distinct. The road to a majority in Ottawa often goes through Quebec with its 78 ridings. And so, no wonder, wooing La Belle Province is part of the game plan.
Yeah, the way numbers are looking right now, it's likely that Ontario will decide who wins or loses, and Quebec might decide whether it's a minority or a majority.
Cracking the Quebec code, though, is at times tricky for federal parties. This is a province prone to electoral waves. Take, for instance, the Orange Crush of Jack Layton's NDP in 2011. It won 80% of Quebec's seats. Now it holds just 1 riding. The Bloc Québécois, too, has seen highs and lows. It once formed the official opposition. This time, Quebec's concerns more closely match those of the ROC, the rest of Canada.
Celui qui va travailler le plus pour le Canada.
We should choose the leader who will work hardest for Canada, says this 89-year-old woman. I want my grandchildren to be Quebecers, not Americans. The Québécois, once least attached to Canada, have draped themselves in the maple leaf.
And even those respondents that would say they're voting yes in a referendum seem to be feeling a greater degree of pride in Canada, paradoxically.
Jack Jedwab says that to some, Canada looks like a buffer for Quebec.
A buffer against the threat emerging from the United States that's not only an economic threat, but that also has language dimensions to it.
A U.S. report pointed to Quebec's recently revamped language law, Bill 96, as a trade barrier. Among its provisions, it tightens rules about trademarks on product packaging. And of course, there's the concern that the U.S. has just named English its official language. Sandy.
Okay, Jen, thank you. So clearly, this is a key moment for the top contenders to reach out to Quebecers, especially with the threat from south of the border. Chief news anchor Omar Satudina will be leading our coverage later tonight, so let's check in with him in a Montreal riding which exemplifies those changing priorities. Hi, Omar.
Sandy, the Liberals have a significant lead over the Bloc and the Conservatives in this province. And if you're Mark Carney, you're hoping it stays that way after tonight's French language debate. Now, in this riding of La Salle et Verdun, this used to be a Liberal stronghold, but it flipped for the Bloc in a September by-election, but by fewer than 300 votes. But polls show it could now flip back, part of a larger trend of the Bloc losing support to the Liberals in this province. The switch from a party pushing for Quebec independence to a party that doesn't, motivated by Trump's threats of annexation.
I think for a lot of Quebecers, they're thinking about Quebec within Canada and Quebec onto itself, and who might be the best leader to position themselves to defend Quebec's interest.
Comes from
a sentiment Philippe Sarrazin says many in his community of Verdun share.
Even if you are for the independence of Quebec, we are not an independent state right now. We won't be in the next year or two for sure. So we have to look at what's going on right now. And right now, the issue is who is the best candidate to deal with Trump.
He's owned this bookstore for more than 20 years, selling the stories of others, all the while bracing for the next chapter in his own.
Are you nervous about the future of Quebec, or are you optimistic?
I'm on hold right now. I can't say. Honestly, I try to be more optimistic.
And so the ballot box question for many here, but also in much of Canada, is who is best able to manage this turbulence? Sandy?
All right. Thank you, Omar. Now, the Green Party is not happy about being pulled from the debate, calling the removal undemocratic. CTV's Rachel Aiello takes on this story. And Rachel, what's behind the decision to drop the Greens?
Sandy, the Debates Commission disinvited the Greens for failing to meet their criteria. But the co-leader that was supposed to represent the party on stage called it an attempt to silence him. Starting his day differently than he'd anticipated, Jonathan Pedneau slammed the decision from debate organizers to rescind his invite, less than 12 hours before he was to take the stage.
Let me be clear, their last-minute decision to exclude the Green Party of Canada from the leaders' debate is not only unjust and baseless, because we met the criteria, it is undemocratic.
That call from the commission in charge of federal election debates was based on one key requirement: running candidates in at least 90% of federal ridings. It's meant to be a metric of a party's viability as an option for voters. But after vowing to nominate 343, Elections Canada only lists 232 Green candidates. The commission said that because the Green Party has intentionally reduced the number of candidates running for strategic reasons, it no longer meets the intention of the participation criteria to justify inclusion in the leaders' debates. Why would we take questions if you want a platform? After stating he still fully expected to be at the debates tonight, reporters tried to press Pedneau on next steps.
I have no further comments.
Just last week, co-leader Elizabeth May said she felt her party was getting squeezed out of the electoral conversation, but hoped the nationally televised debates would change that.
Wait for the leaders' debate and see how Jonathan Pedneau represents Green values.
The Liberals said they are disappointed in the Commission's decision, while the NDP said they respect it and reject any attempt to politicize the non-partisan body. Now, the stage is set with just 4 podiums, and no indication the Debates Commission is going to reverse course.
This decision is anti-democratic.
Asked if the party plans to take this to court, Pedneau said earlier today that the Greens were leaving all options on the table. Sandy?
All right, CTV's Rachel Aiello. Time to get some insight from CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelas. Okay, Vashi, the Greens are out of the debate, so now there are 4. What's at stake and who has the most to lose tonight?
I think that Mark Carney certainly has the most to lose, particularly, I think in both debates, but in this debate in particular, just because he is out ahead, even when you look at the question of preferred prime minister. And French is, of course, a vulnerability, as Mike mentioned. So I think there is a lot at stake for everyone, but primarily as the front runner, the most for Mark Carney, which is probably why he was a bit hesitant about expressing support for the Green Party not being in this debate. All the other party leaders who have a lot more to gain in this debate are happy with the extra time to go at Mr. Carney.
Okay, so what is also interesting, Vashi, and I want your thoughts on this. The debate was supposed to start at 8 p.m., but then there's that hockey game. This is the second time in election history that the time has been changed because of hockey. So will the 6 p.m. factor help or hurt? Or does it make a difference?
Well, yeah, it's a great question, both at the request of Bloc Québécois leaders. In this instance, is François Blanchette. In the last instance, Gilles Duceppe. I have to say, I feel for the Francophones who live in rural parts of Western Canada who will have to interrupt their workday if they want to catch this debate. I think it will make a difference, however, in the province of Quebec, where Hab fever is omnipresent and likely will give them at least an hour of watch time for this debate. Sandy?
Okay, Vashi, thank you as always. Now, you can watch the French leaders debate online. The face-off takes place at 6 p.m. Eastern. Not too long from now. It will be streamed live at ctvnews.ca. Well, the premiers from Ontario and 2 Atlantic provinces have joined together to improve trade ties in response to the U.S. tariff war.
It's a win for every business owner, a win for every worker, and every community held back by red tape and duplication.
Premier Doug Ford signed agreements with Nova Scotia's Tim Houston and Susan Holt from New Brunswick to bolster the movement of goods and services between the provinces. Ontario's government also tabled legislation today that aims to remove barriers on trade between provinces. Lingering economic uncertainty from Donald Trump's trade war helped convince the Bank of Canada to hold its trend-setting rate steady. CTV's Scott Hurst on this.
Paul, good morning, everyone.
Buckle up. The Bank of Canada is preparing for a bumpy ride.
A lot has happened since our March decision 5 weeks ago.
As the White House continues to drive global market turmoil, the Donald Trump trade war is causing Canada's central bank to pump the brakes on interest rate cuts, halting a streak of 7 straight reductions.
The path for U.S. trade policy remains highly unpredictable.
And that unpredictability has the Bank of Canada holding its benchmark interest rate at 2.75%. But even now, we're already seeing Canada's economy take a hit as tariffs and uncertainty pull down consumer confidence and weaken business spending in the first quarter.
How do you predict the future when you have no idea in the chaos of a trade war?
Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem is highlighting 2 scenarios that could play out. One possibility is that most of the tariffs are negotiated away and don't cause long-term harm to the overall economy. But the second possibility is much more dire. It would see the Canadian economy suffer severe consequences from a long-lasting global trade war.
The dramatic protectionist shift in U.S. trade policy and the chaotic delivery have increased uncertainty, roiled financial markets, diminished global growth prospects, and increased inflation expectations.
The Bank of Canada says it is committed to keeping inflation under control, even in the chaos, but all the economic uncertainty has consumers caught in the middle.
It certainly means that if you're renewing a mortgage, if you're trying to get a car loan or something like that, that's not going to become cheaper. If you've got a variable rate mortgage, it's not going to become cheaper.
The next interest rate announcement from the Bank of Canada is on June 4th, more than 5 weeks after the federal election, meaning whichever party wins, they'll have more than a month to tackle Trump's tariffs before the central bank's next decision. Scott Hurst, CTV News, Toronto.
The World Trade Organization is warning that the outlook for global trade has deteriorated sharply because of the uncertainty caused by U.S. tariffs. The WTO says it had forecast global trading to expand by well over 2%, and now it predicts a slight decline as a result of both Donald Trump's trade strategy and the tariff war between the U.S. and China. Well, Donald Trump and Japanese officials, trade officials, made today to talk tariffs, but coverage was focused on the fate of Kilmar Garcia, the Maryland man mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled he should be brought back, but today, the U.S. Attorney General said Garcia is staying put. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malvin joins us now. Okay, Joy, so what exactly did the Attorney General say?
Sandy, there is a defiance coming from the Trump administration, and Kilmar Abrego Garcia is at the center of this fight between the president and the courts. The government admits that it deported Garcia by mistake, but refuses to bring him back. A Democratic senator flew down there to push for his release, but came away empty-handed, and the Attorney General says Garcia is staying put.
There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country. None. None. He would have come back, had one extra step of paperwork, and gone back again. But he's from El Salvador, he's in El Salvador, and that's where the president plans on keeping him.
All right, so standing firm. Now Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, busy also announcing that the Justice Department is suing the state of Maine. So what is all that about?
Sandy, the president signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. But Maine's Democratic Governor Janet Mills refused to comply after she and Donald Trump had a very public dust-up last month. Now, the government's using its resources to sue the state of Maine that has 2 transgender athletes in girls' sports. Take a listen.
One, that's enough for us to be standing up here. One, no boy will be undressing in a girl's locker room. No boy will be walking in a woman's restroom. And no boy, when we're finished with this, will be beating young girls in sports.
Sandy, the president believes these are winning issues for him, even as a D.C. district judge blasted the Trump administration, warning that it could be held in contempt for refusing to stop those deportation flights.
Okay, Joy, thank you. And the top court in the United Kingdom made a landmark decision today about the legal definition of a woman.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex.
The ruling means a transgender woman will not be considered a woman when it comes to equality issues. The court stressed the law still protects against discrimination, but critics say it will create difficulties. Still ahead, mixed signals about online transparency. Canadian officials under fire for using a discreet app. The messaging app Signal is attractive for its privacy settings, but now, ironically, the popular platform is at the center of controversy for that very reason. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has been investigating. And Adrian, what's this all about?
Sandy, the federal government has about 300,000 mobile devices issued to employees across the country. The messages on those phones should always be saved in the name of public transparency. Though a high-ranking employee in Ottawa had his messages set to disappear on his government-issued smartphone.
The government employee in question is Chief Information Officer of Canada, Dominic Rochon.
The individual who is responsible for determining what apps you are allowed and not allowed to have on your government-issued device.
Rochon had the messaging apps Signal and WhatsApp on his government smartphone. And through a Freedom of Information request known as an FOI, these screen grabs of Rochon's phone were released, showing he had messages set to disappear in just 7 days after being sent and received on both apps.
There's a lot of not just transparency issues at play here, but also security issues.
Recently, a large group of high-ranking U.S. government officials came under fire after a journalist was mistakenly looped into a Signal message chat about a pending military assault on Houthi militants in Yemen. Matt Malone, an associate professor with the Faculty of Law at the University of Ottawa, filed the FOI. Malone has been working to draw attention towards the challenges when filing such requests.
The timeline for responding to an access to information request is 30 days. And here we see the deletion of text messages within 7 days on at least 2 apps.
The Chief Information Officer of Canada is part of the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, an agency responsible for overseeing the finances and operations of the federal government, including the country's access to information system. In an email to CTV News, a TBS spokesperson in part wrote that all public servants are expected to manage information effectively while preserving Canadians' right to access and protecting personal and government information.
It's a fair presumption that messages on encrypted messaging apps with disappearing texts are likely business related. If it's on a government issued device, it's government related.
We've taken steps to reach out to Mr. Rochon. As of this hour, Sandy, we've yet to receive a response.
Adrian Gabriel. Now, this might sound hard to believe, but the biggest reality show in Sweden is something called The Great Moose Migration. 9 million viewers are tuning in daily to watch a 24-hour live stream of thousands of moose as they trek and swim across the country towards summer grazing pastures. The migration usually lasts for 20 days. And we'll be right back after this break. Quebec's Gaspe Peninsula is known as the cradle of Canada. It's where the St. Lawrence opens up into the ocean. Now, this sparsely populated region, sculpted by wind and wave, has its own unique concerns, which is why we sent CTV's Sarah Plowman there to speak to voters about what's top of mind during this election campaign.
People who live along the Gaspe Peninsula don't need to show off. The scenery does it for them. Part of a deep connected history for Francophones, Anglophones, and the Mi'kmaq showcased in Gaspe at the site known as the birthplace of Canada.
Jacques Cartier came here in 1534, planted a cross, took possession of the land in the name of the King of France. Is not the original one from Jacques.
As site coordinator Roxanne Dufresne shares the past, she looks to her future. At 26, the lifelong resident is learning it's difficult to find a house she can afford.
Houses are expensive, and here the issue is that they're very old. So you're going to pay a lot of money for a house, and it's going to be heated by wood.
Finding an apartment to rent can also prove difficult. In 2024, Gaspe's vacancy rate was 0.3%. James Cassidy recently moved back from Quebec City.
Lucky enough to know people and have contacts to find myself a way around, but for people who don't know or are not from here, it's probably harder.
The mayor says the community has been building 100 new homes a year, but they need more help.
The federal government and the provincial government must invest in affordable housing.
This federal election, the economy is his top concern. Wind power, manufacturing, and the fisheries are big industries here. Any talk of a tariff is concerning. Here, where seafood is on the menu, trade tensions show up too. The owner wants certainty in his costs.
We just hope that's not going to be get high.
There is hope that trade tensions with the U.S. could lead to more tourism here as Canadians look to discover their own country this summer. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Gaspe, Quebec.
And thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up. We'll see you here again tomorrow, we hope. Bye for now.